all in all, you can think about it too like a big box store, right? You go and you pay a certain membership to go to that store. And you can purchase, high quality products at a fairly reduced cost, and you can get in there, get what you need, and then, do the work that you need to do.
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now, it's time to roll back and start the first case.
On this week's episode of First Case, we are sitting down with Joe Chua, OR nurse and value analysis professional from Dallas, Texas, to have another myth-busting conversation. And in today's conversation, we're really looking at this idea that says, surgeons can just get whatever they want. They snap their fingers and it shows up on the shelf. And if you've been around the OR long enough, you know that's really not true. And yet people still believe it. So this is a conversation, Chris, that I think is worth having, not just because of putting this myth to bed, but also to really understand what really goes on behind the scenes to get products on the shelf.
Yeah, I'm really excited to learn, what happens when you say no or why, but also, you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit.
And what we get comes backed by research and by education and committees meeting together to make the best decisions for patient care for the hospital. So there's a lot packed into this episode, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back with Joe Chua.
Hi, I'm Chris Blevins.
And I'm Melanie Perry.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to First Case.
Joining us now is Joe Chua, OR nurse and value analysis professional from Dallas, Texas. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Melanie. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to get to talk to you today. I know that we met a few years ago, actually, at AORN Expo. Was it in San Antonio that we met? Or was it New Orleans?
No, we ended up meeting in Louisiana, New Orleans.
Yeah, that's right, in New Orleans. And we've been, I think, connected on LinkedIn before that, but I got to meet you at Expo. And then we've stayed connected over the years. And I've seen a few really good supply chain related comments coming out on social media pages and social media posts. And as I was putting the season together, I was like, supply chain. Yes, there are lies we believe about how things work within the supply chain world. And we're going to talk to Joe about that to clear that up. And so today we're really looking at this idea that a surgeon can get whatever they want, whenever they want it. And, all they have to do is ask for it or throw a fit, and what they want will show up. And that's not really true all the time. And so I'm really going to talk about just that relationship between supply chain and the operating room, and how we got this idea that surgeon just has to ask for it and it'll magically appear. So before we get into that conversation, though, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and we will get this conversation going.
Yeah. Well, my name is Joe Chua. I am an OR nurse and a value analysis healthcare professional. I've been an OR nurse since 2018. Prior to that, I actually used to work in the distilling and brewing industry.
Oh, really?
So I did that before nursing school and throughout nursing school until my first day of hire. So I like to say that the perks of the job are really good, benefits not so much. And the joke that I always had with all of my patients is that, I used to work in the liquor industry. So any way that you shake it, all my people that I take care of, they go to sleep. So,
whether it's the alcohol or the propofol, they're going to go to sleep, right?
Yeah. Both kind of burn a little bit too. So it kind of depends on who you ask. But right in the middle of the pandemic, I moved over to the supply chain side. I wanted to go and really take a look at how business was done in the healthcare arena. And there's no better place to kind of see how that's done than directly inside supply chain. So you're interacting with everybody from, your C-suite to your vendors to your physicians to the clinicians that, you worked side by side. It was a great experience to be able to go and see how all the cogs worked behind the scenes. Really, really enjoy that. I did a lot of good work to be able to go and help not only patients, but also physicians and then the entities that I worked for as well. But yeah, I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Well, I'm going to take a tangent already. We're not even very early in the conversation. I already have a side question, but I'm actually curious about how your OR experience influenced your role in supply chain now. How did it help you in supply chain by understanding the OR before you got there?
Yeah, so that is a really great question. So value analysis doesn't just employ OR nurses or anybody from procedural areas. We really want to be able to get a diverse perspective on what healthcare is. And your value analysis professional is going to have a lot of expertise in that particular field. In my case, it's the OR in some of the procedural areas. And so it's realizing how those places work, not only clinically, but also operationally. And really driving those efficiencies. And so when you start looking at supply chain, their goal is to just get product from point A to point B. That point B might be on the shelf. That point B might be directly inside a patient. And so realizing that too, especially coming from, sometimes smaller hospitals, you're very, very stretched thin and you wear a lot of hats. And so sometimes you might be getting that product and ordering that product or getting that product in such a way that you are going to be that person who has that chain of custody all the way to the point where it ends up inside a patient and then you're charting it. And it was a really cool thing to be able to realize where all those ideas, where all that pathway comes from. So that way we can get, the right product to the right patient at the right time.
For sure, definitely. And so here we are talking about products, talking about things, and this is the crux of our conversation this week because there's this idea that a surgeon can just ask for it. They just get it. Whatever they want, they're going to get. And we see time and time again that that's not actually true. It doesn't always happen that way, but that is an idea that staff and surgeons believe that they can just have it. So why is that idea out there that all they got to do is ask for it and they can get whatever it is?
Well, so that's perpetuated in a couple ways. One of those ways is that it might be potential like business or volume incentives. So let's talk about it from that stance. We're trying to go and get a surgeon on board. They're offering a brand new service line for our hospital. They're adding some sort of value for us. And, we want to be able to say yes to them because we just don't want them to walk to another competitor. We've kind of done some sort of, business case analysis and they're trying to entertain offers from other hospitals. And I mean, it's one of those things. You're going to go naturally to whoever offers you the best kind of deal. If you've got a door that's kind of shut off for you, and you feel that in some way that this is going to benefit your patients, that might be something where, again, from a value proposition of me going to a place and offering my book of business to a hospital or an ASC or whatever entity, it's I want to be able to go and get the best where I can. The same thing could be said for, personal motivations as well. Sometimes they might have a clinical motivation behind it. They really feel that this, particular product is going to help their patients. And, they've been part of research. They've seen the empirical data that allows them to be able to say definitively that this could really help their patients. Sometimes it's financial. So they may be financially motivated because they are working as a consultant for that particular vendor. They may end up having some sort of engineering incentives or engineering input into the product that they are implanting into patients. After that, we can also really look at this as part of like relationships. Sometimes you might have a surgeon that is friends with a particular rep or friends with somebody in a particular company. And so that motivation might be inside there as well.
Well, not to interrupt you, Joe, but also like we're creatures of habit in the OR. I mean, and the way that we were trained, I think, especially from a surgeon and medical students, like that's the skill set you're comfortable with. And that's what, you feel you're going to give the patient the best care with. And so, when you walk into a new facility and none of those things are available to you, now your confidence level is down, you're not comfortable with what is given. And then you're concerned that the safety of the patient could be, compromised because you don't know what you're working with sometimes. And maybe that's where some of those demands come from too. Do you ever see that?
Yeah, we see it all the time. I have it at X place. Why can't I have it over here?
I want what I
And
want when I want it.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you go through all the OR tropes. If I do this case exactly the same way every single time, really, do we do
Do
that?
they?
Or
Really?
Do they? Yeah.
or I do it. I've done it this way for X amount of years. Great, the products have changed. We hear that all the time. But at the very end of the day, we also have to kind of remember too that just as much as the physician is working on their practice, and it is practice, it's just as much as of our practice too to understand the products, the clinical value, the movement, even in how the finances and reimbursement works inside the healthcare industry, to be able to go and really respond to all those changes that happen, and to be really agile as those changes happen, even especially with all the changes that are happening this year.
When it comes to those new changes, like, do they ever get involved in the conversations between like the surgeon and the vendor? I'm curious about that because you said that you guys are involved in that we see vendors kind of, make themselves attractive to the surgeon, and that's the person that they consider their clientele. But you guys are so involved in getting that new product. I just wonder, are you all ever involved in those kinds of conversations where like, hey, this is something new, or a newer version? And do they ever talk to you about the logistics of what it would mean to incorporate that into that facility?
Yeah. That happens all the time. One of the main kind of tenets of the job of any value analysis healthcare professional is to stay on top of the game, stay on top of what's happening, what the changes are. That's one of the reasons why I'm, still heavily involved in AORN and OR nursing. I really want to stay abreast of all the changes that are happening inside there. And it's great to be able to have friends like you, Melanie, and even Glenn Barnes, who, I asked to go for you to interview him because
he was
just
amazing.
a brilliant person.
Okay, time out. We have to do a plug. Glenn Barnes was a former podcast guest. He talked about survivalist techniques out in the field, and we talked about healthcare in those emergency settings away from a hospital. Check his interview out. By the time we get to the end of the show, I will have the title for you, and I will make sure you can go look it up. But Glenn Barnes, fantastic interview, and we have Joe to thank for that connection, so we could talk to him. Okay, plug
Small
over.
world.
You can go back to your statement now, Joe.
Yeah, but it's also having individuals who not only mentor you but also help shape your journey, especially throughout the OR. So I think about Charlie Lynn, who I consider one of my AORN mentors. Absolutely brilliant person, especially from a clinical and then also care perspective. Just absolutely brilliant. And it's great to be able to see that perspective, but also attaching yourselves to other thought leaders and other brilliant people like Pete Graves, who does a lot with infection prevention in the healthcare institutions. It's awesome to be able to go and see how that interfaces with a lot of the things that AORN is trying to do, as well as seeing all the stuff that a lot of these other nursing organizations and other healthcare groups that are really trying to do the best that they can for the patient.
All right, so I want to try to understand more completely, I guess, the relationship that value analysis has to our operating rooms, to our sterile processing departments, to our Department of Surgical Services in general. But when it comes to really making the decisions about what shows up on the shelf, say we're talking about a new dressing, or we're talking about a new implant, or we're talking about even new tools, new surgical instruments, or other things like that, there is a lot of information gathering and data searching and all of that stuff that goes on within your department when it comes to the different companies, different suppliers, all the different things that I don't even know because I'm talking outside of my realm here. But that is my understanding of how it works. But I want to hear from you really how that process works when we've got something we need, but how do y'all determine what we get versus what we don't get?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty easy. And so what I'll do is I'll make this, pretty snide joke. Value analysis is essentially, how do we have our cake and eat it too without getting diabetes in the process?
Yes.
Yes. There
So
you go.
good.
That's the complete thing.
So, and what I mean by that is it comes in different parts, right? So let's just take the clinical part of it. So we always start with literature. We're here for the patients. We're here in a clinical environment. We want to be able to provide the best products for our patients as possible. So we look at clinical data. We want to be able to understand what the product is, what the product does, any other comparables that we have with that particular product. And then also we go down the quality road. Does this actually do well for patients? Is there any harm that comes to patients with regards to this product? In what ways are they harmed? In what cases are they harmed in? And so we really do a great job of looking at the clinical value, because ultimately that's how we're going to go and talk with physicians. That's how we're going to be able to talk with other clinicians in the realm. We're speaking the clinical language. We want to be able to go and do our best evidence-based practice and evidence-based data in order to provide those products for patients. So that's for the first part. Where the value comes in is that, let's say we're looking at, pens, right? And I know for the majority of you guys out there, you have your very, very, very favorite pen. Mine is particular gel pen by a company that ends with ARPI, and that is 0.7 millimeters, and it glides across, paper
right.
like Christy Yamaguchi
Beautifully.
does.
Love that thing.
Mine
know
is
exactly
sterile.
how pen.
Mine is sterile and has nothing to do with the patient chart.
Okay, you
Just
scrub
saying.
You sit over
Just
there and be
saying.
smug.
That's where the value comes in, right? So this is where we go. All right, so we've got the Christy Yamaguchi of pens, and then we've got these other pens that are also just as great. And now we want to be able to go and evaluate them. Do they still write? Do they still mark up? Do we have any problems with them? What's the cost difference between each one of the pens? And at the very end of the day, if it's all kind of commoditized, it's kind of like buying gas at a gas station. I'm going to typically go for the thing that doesn't hurt my car and that gives me the best value. So that's ultimately it. And then the last part about all of this is creating that relationship. So you are creating the relationship between you and the physicians. You're creating the relationship between you and the OR director or the staff, because you want them to be able to see you as not only a subject matter expert in value analysis, but you also want them to see you as an expert in whatever it is that you're looking at. My job is to go and drill into whatever you want me to drill into if you're asking for a product. And I want to be able to tell you point blank and be as objective as I can. Hey, this product is a really good buy for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to save money or, reduce the amount of stuff that we have inside an OR, because, we totally have so much space in every single supply cabinet.
Yeah. We have extra room. We're overflowing
all
with
day
extra
long.
Space all day
Yeah.
long. Yeah.
Who knew you needed like 12 pairs?
It's a great opportunity to be able to do as much as we can to be able to consolidate that. Again, providing that efficiency for those clinical teams, being that expert to get you guys what you need when you need it.
What about GPOs? Because we hear this abbreviation, group purchasing organization, this idea of things we can purchase and things we can't, and it has to be in this group or not. That can make getting what is requested or getting what we want, it can be limiting. How does a GPO fit into all of this process? Because I don't really understand them. I just know the words.
Yeah. So effectively, a GPO is a group buy. That's it. So let's say that you and a couple friends decide to go and buy some, Girl Scout cookies or Boy Scout popcorn, since that's kind of the hit right now, especially with my kids. I try to go and negotiate a deal and be like, hey, I'll buy 20 boxes off of you guys if you knock like $1 off of my purchase. That's effectively what a group purchasing organization does, is that we're trying to be able to go and leverage scale to be able to go and get products where we need them, and where we need them is for our patients. If we're going to talk about kind of a brief history, this actually started in the early 1910s. It started actually in New York, where a bunch of hospitals and hospital bureaus got together to be able to go and get products for their patients. This eventually ends up blossoming a lot more in the 1960s, around the time that Medicare and Medicaid was passed, and especially with cost being something that a lot of the legalese really tried to go and clamp down on. Group purchasing organizations also took a rise, just because it was a way for these organizations to be able to provide benefit for healthcare entities. And then now we're looking at somewhere between 96 to 98% of all healthcare entities being part of some sort of group purchasing organization. But all in all, you can think about it too like a big box store, right? You go and you pay a certain membership to go to that store. You can purchase, high quality products at a fairly reduced cost, and you can get in there, get what you need, and then do the work that you need to do.
But that's sometimes what we run into when a product is requested. We want this, we want to get it on the shelf, we want to have this here, and it's outside of that GPO. And so it ends up not being purchased, or it's a bigger expense. So how do y'all handle that when it's something that's requested that's outside of your contract?
Okay. So there's a couple ways through that. The first way is get this item in front of your value analysis professional. You want them to be able to go and see it, take a look at it, and then also between yourself, potentially the physician, requesting the product, get them to be able to go and have that clinical rationale behind it. Again, we're healthcare value analysis professionals. We want to be able to go and speak that language. We want to understand the clinical need behind it. After that, we can evaluate it on basis of cost. We can look at it from a contracting standpoint. And this will go through some sort of value analysis committee to be able to bring in or just not bring in. A couple reasons why we may not bring in a product is because it goes against certain initiatives that the organization has. It may go against a potential rebate or a contract that we're really trying to be able to hit. And if we can hit it with the majority of everybody that's working towards something, then that particular item may not be as valuable to us as the larger contract in and of itself. So all in all, we want to be able to see where that clinical value is, where that financial value is, to be able to go and bring a product on board. If there's other values that we need to be able to assess, that's something that, your value analysis team can do between, your value analysis person, your contracts person. Potentially it's, your operations people, and how that product is able to be brought in. Maybe it's brought in through a distributor, and we can go and get a certain amount of rebate or a certain amount of value inside there. So it really does depend. I know that's not the greatest answer, but I do want to be able to say that there is a way to be able to bring a product in. It just has to be evaluated. We don't want something just showing up and now it's coming towards a patient where no one's actually done a really good look at what this thing is.
It's that process. All of these processes seem super complex and for a really good reason, but it just brings operations and sometimes need to happen on a timely basis for a very good reason as well, right? And there are some things that special equipment or supplies that need to be brought in quickly that are specific to that patient or that operation that a surgeon could feel, or the entire operative team could feel, that are quite necessary, that are special buys. How do you handle the urgency of a matter, a special purchase, the logistics of getting it in there, when maybe the time to do that deep dive that you would normally do on something routine isn't available, and everybody's screaming a patient needs this now, we got to go. How do you handle that?
Well, so there's a couple things. I think the majority of the time, we hear about, well, I need this and I need this now, and the question starts to arise of, did we communicate about this earlier? I think we're having a breakdown of communications.
Yeah. No, because they do it that way all the time. All the time. Yeah. They've asked for this 5 times before.
and so this is where communication documentation really comes into play. This is the same thing that we talk about in the OR, where if it's not documented, it doesn't happen, right? Or if we didn't communicate about it, we didn't close the loop with it, then there's no actual communication going on. And this is where we start to really want to develop relationships with our physicians, with our clinicians. We want to be able to go and get the right message, not just the products, but also to the right message to the right people. So if we're having breakdowns in communication where I need this and I need this now, the question starts to arise with, well, if you do your case the same way every single time, why is this an emergency?
Yes. Why do you know?
Right.
So obviously there is a unique factor when we do get those emergent requests. There's a specific situation for this patient and we have to have it. So then how do we bypass the usual things to deal with the immediate need and then evaluate for more regular use later, I guess?
So this is one of the things that every single value analysis person pretty much combats, because we want to be able to have consistency just like you guys do, right? We want to be able to go and have kind of the same workload, same case. A boring day is a good day, especially in
Nothing
the OR.
exciting.
And so this is where, if we're wanting to be able to go and get a case, we're seeing something that is necessary. We want this is potentially life-saving. Then we do have prescripted pathways to be able to go and get that in. I'm not going to speak for every single healthcare organization to say that this is something that we want to be able to bypass. And the reality of the situation is that when workarounds become common, they become policy and they become protocol, and that's something that really don't want to do. We saw a lot of the workarounds that were happening in COVID, and that caused a lot of safety concerns. That's something that we also don't necessarily want in value analysis healthcare in general, because if we've got products that are flying in that no one's really vetted, I think about some of the biologics companies. You can literally start a biologics company in your garage and then sell those products to surgeons without these products being vetted.
There's
Okay, that's terrifying.
Gig. Yeah.
Oh. Chris is over here. There's a side gig, and I'm like, I'm scared.
No.
Wait a second.
Right? We don't
I don't think it's a very good business model.
No, not at all.
Hawking pieces of people around, but
No,
you do you.
I've
seen the documentaries. Like, there's some people are doing BBLs out of shopping malls. I mean, it's awful. Like,
it's terrifying to think
you have to vet.
The lack of oversight for some of this stuff, and then the risk that it is to our patients. And so we do need the gatekeepers. We need the people to say, hold up, let's look at this. Let's make sure that it's a safe item for our patient, that it's a good value for our hospital, because you have to have both. I mean, at the end of the day, there has to be value, there has to be patient safety, and we have to find a way to marry those together. And I think a good way to kind of bring this conversation full circle and to, we're talking about this idea that I can just get whatever I want whenever I want to. And we know that that's not really true, that there are steps you have to take. There's processes you have to go through. But one of those processes and one of those things is like your value analysis committee, or this interdisciplinary team that then gets together and meets and addresses the clinical nature of it, the patient safety aspect of it, all of that. And I'm curious what your perspective or your experience has been with these teams and committees, and how it helps, how the decision-making is done, bringing in all of the opinions from all sides of the table.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, right? Healthcare is a team sport, pure and simple. Just like being inside the OR, being in the OR is a team sport. So, you can kind of think of it with the value analysis person leading the discussion. You've got team members that bring in the product. It's the same kind of way whenever me, my wife, and my kids decide what to have for dinner. My kids, yell and they stomp. They want, a certain, they want a certain burger company. And I say, okay, we've had that like all the time. We really need to try to reduce costs where we can. Can we eat at home? And they're like, no, your burger's stuck at home, Dad. I went, great. Awesome.
And now you've lost and they won again, right?
Right.
Yeah. But when we look at this in the side the healthcare space, what we really want to be able to do again is everybody getting together. We're objectively talking about the product. We're objectively talking about the cost. And so, let's say we're bringing in new products for an anesthesia machine, or let's say it's new filters for ventilators. Well, those filters may cross over into the anesthesia machines, but those filters also might have some cross capability with the ventilators that are up on the floor. So respiratory is going to want to have an opinion about that. Maybe they've identified a product that's significantly better for patients, might have a little bit higher cost, but it's something that works for everybody. Again, consolidating products where we can. Same thing maybe for, IV catheters. You want the perspective of the ER nurses, the ICU nurses, potentially your pick teams for those hard sticks. You want to be able to create an environment that everybody brings value to the table, everybody's voice is heard, but at the same time, you're also managing the expectations too, saying, look, if I got a needle and this needle is made by the same company that makes 5 other people's needles, I don't need to buy the highest cost one. I just need to buy the one that creates the best value for my organization and ultimately is safe for my patients. So that's where you start bringing in those collaborative teams. You want your surgeons because they are there day in and day out operating on patients. They're using the products, and you want to be able to get their buy-in with whatever you're trying to do. Same thing with your surgical techs, Chris. My surgical techs are going to be the ones who are setting up the case. If I got something that requires 50 pieces and 15 minutes to put together, my turnaround times are not going to be good.
We are not interested.
No. Also, if troubleshooting it, like, you have to see the efficacy rate. If it is constantly breaking down on you, like, yeah, it's good for one use. But if it's, you can use it 12 times. No, it's really good for one use. And we're telling you that it breaks down after one use. Like, believe us when we say real world versus packaging. I can't stress that enough as well. So,
yeah. I mean, and, I think a lot about that too, especially being that value analysis person. I always listen to my surgical techs saying, hey, this was working for doc. They had good outcomes over here, or hey, they hated it. Or, there were some products out there where we started looking at it and we went, oh, hey, the techs are actually using this wrong. We need to go and change the way that we do process rather than necessarily looking at product. And again, that's where that expertise as an OR professional comes in, where you go, hey, we can start looking at processes even more, because if I don't have to pay for a product, that's even better than switching out to something else.
Yeah. A lot. Education, communication, interdisciplinary respect, so you're not wrangling cats and actually communicate. All of these things could be, I think, learned throughout not just your job field, but I think we've said these in multiple interviews this season and others. So you're speaking our language, Joe.
Yeah,
we really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a good conversation to have, because I think that behind the red line, we get very focused on just what we need or what we want to have on the shelf, and we want it to be there, and why the heck isn't it here, or any of the other things that I'm sure you hear from the OR side. And without understanding the bigger picture, and without understanding the process behind everything that goes into play to get those things on our shelves, we don't really understand what we're yelling about if we haven't seen the bigger picture. But when you understand,
your soapbox, Melanie?
Maybe, but when you've got to understand the bigger picture so that you actually know what's worth yelling about and what you just need to understand and maybe work alongside other teams in order to get what you need. But before we bring this conversation to a close, we always like to give the mic back to our guest. So before we go, if you have any other advice or any final thoughts you want to leave with our audience, take it away.
So I think the final thoughts that I really want to be able to leave with you guys is, for any products or anything that you're realistically needing inside a hospital, really get in touch and get to know your value analysis person. They tend to be plugged in everywhere, not just inside the procedural areas, but they tend to be plugged in everywhere, and they are able to kind of touch and see everything. Usually these people have some sort of clinical background, and we're seeing a lot more individuals with a diverse background enter into healthcare value analysis. And it's not just somebody who, got tired of the clinical arena and is now, surfing the Excel sheets. They're really working to have this good relationship with the clinical teams. They've been there, they've done it. They've seen where patients have gotten really, really well from the efforts that they've had. They've seen patients that have gotten hurt from bad product and bad process. And so I would really challenge a lot of you to be able to get to know that value analysis person. In addition to that, really kind of take a look and step back a little bit. Yeah, I've got a surgeon and I've got a rep potentially yelling about, wanting products there, but is that product actually going to help patients, or is it going to help somebody else's pocketbook? The reality of the situation is that, while I like my favorite pen and it costs quite a bit, that other pen that has a ballpoint and was developed to be able to write in space and is less than 10 cents per pack, might be just as good to go and get the job done. And especially if it's something that we've done all the way across the board. The last part about this is it's communication, and it's communication all the way across the board. You want to be able to close loops. You want to have that closed conversation with whoever you're interacting with. So if you're going to do what you say, you need to say what you're going to do. And I specifically say it backwards in that sense because a lot of that interaction that we have, we want to push that research in the forefront. We want to be able to be prepared for those conversations. So if I'm saying, if we're saying that a particular setup doesn't work, I want to be able to give the rationalization why. I want to show you what I mean rather than telling you. That way I can get some color between the lines with whatever email or text message or phone call you're telling me. I want to know that because there's other pieces of value in there. That product may not have a cost value in there, even though it's a really good clinical value, but it may save me time. It may have better patient outcomes. And that's something that's really, really valuable for us because at the very end of the day, if that patient's not coming back for potential infections or if they're not coming back for any redos that we have to do for that patient, that's great value for us. We've got a solid win. And then also, if you're bringing a product that's newer to the market or it's something that, you feel like everybody uses, make sure that you bring that evidence to that clinical value analysis person. We are hungry for evidence. We want to see it. We want to see those peer-reviewed studies, those meta-analysis, because that gives us reduces a lot of the anxiety of bringing a potential product into a facility where we know that it's been reviewed by hundreds, if not thousands of people. And now that it's safe, it's good for our patients and it's good for the whole.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us today and for kind of pulling back the curtain and helping us to see the bigger role of value analysis and understand the connection that it has to the products that we use and the things that we ask for and the things that we sometimes demand, but helping us get the products that we need and helping us do them in such a way that it's safe for our patients and also a good value for the facility. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks, Melanie. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks, Chris.
That was Joe Chua, OR nurse and value analysis professional in Dallas, Texas. And Joe really gave us some really good insight into the value analysis process and also the real process behind how we get what we want. We're talking about this idea that all a surgeon has to do is just say he wants it and he gets it and it's on the shelf and they always get what they want. And that's not always true. But what really is true is understanding the process behind how all of those things end up on our shelves, because there's more to it than just snapping your fingers and demanding something and expecting it to show up.
Yeah, I was so impressed by it because it just seems to resonate across more than just product purchasing. Like, get a group of people who are experts in their fields, who can truly speak their mind and be respected, who can educate, each other and who can, kind of work together to decide if a product, a supply, an instrument is going to be able to work across the hospital and then be fiscally responsible. Because at the end of the day, it's about the patient who's going to be charged for it. And it's about the safety. So I loved figuring out what a deep dive that particular position goes down. It makes me want to go and meet everyone in his position at every at every hospital.
All the research that they're doing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But you know what also it tells me, I wonder how many people who are looking to maybe go out of clinical practice but use that information that they have in a different way. Maybe we open some people's eyes. This is another area for clinical ladder, another area to use that background and help patients in a different way. So maybe somebody got something out of that too. So
perhaps
it was a great conversation.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely need the clinical background in order to be successful in this role, making those decisions. I feel like you'd be lost if you didn't have the clinical background to support.
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
To be able to have those conversations and tell a surgeon no when appropriate, and stand your ground in an educated manner. Yeah. So just so many lessons learned tonight. It was great to talk to him.
Absolutely. And hopefully we will have him on the show for future episodes. And as promised, I did get the episode that Glenn Barnes was in that Joe mentioned earlier in the interview. So if you're looking for that episode, that was Wilderness Life Support, Preparing for Emergencies Beyond the Hospital. And it's all the way back in season 12, but Glenn was a phenomenal guest as well. I highly encourage you to listen to that episode because I could have talked to him for like 6 hours straight because of just all the knowledge and information he has. But we're going to get off on another topic if I don't end this thing. So that is going to do it for this week's interview on behalf of Chris, myself, and our whole team. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of First Case.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of First Case. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to First Case on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for First Case in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@firstcasemedia.com. We look forward to hearing from you.